Hello, this is Shai. Welcome to the Joy of CAD. On this episode of the Civil Basics series, part 5 of 6, we will use a standard version of AutoCAD 2026 to generate a roadway profile or vertical alignment within our model. In this video, I will cover what is a roadway profile, how to set up the grid, determine spacing, and determine the X and Y values, how to automatically generate the profile line and block it into AutoCAD, and how to insert this profile into model space and scale it to fit your grid. In addition to roadways, this technique can be applied to all sorts of infrastructure projects, such as railways, airport runways, pipelines, bridges, tunnels, and drainage systems. Simply defined, a roadway profile is the elevation of the roadway along its length. Take, for example, the route we created in the previous video. If we were to walk along this center line of the roadway that we created, we might raise or drop in elevation at any point along this roadway. So we need a way of showing that elevation change as we move along the roadway. And that's where we come up with a profile, a vertical profile. In this case, we have a grid shown here with the center line profile, which represents this as an elevation along this roadway. For those students taking my course, I will provide you with the elevation data. It'll look something like this. I'll give you a text file, and within that text file, you'll have the start of the roadway and an elevation, and then as you progress down the roadway, you will, as you get to the end of the roadway, right? So in this case, our example that we drew the last time was just a little over 718 feet. You'll have a location, an X and Y value, that you'll use to generate your profiles. For the students taking my course, I will provide you with the elevation data. However, in your future courses and to those of you working on real-world applications, you'll need to determine these elevations yourself, either through survey or other topographical means. The first step is to create our grid. In this case, I've already generated an example grid here. This is pretty basic, yes, but this is basically what we're looking for. If you notice, we have station values along the x-axis, right? And again, those correspond with our roadway from 0 to 718, right? Total length of our roadway. And then in the y-axis, we have our elevations. Something important to remember here is that the 0 to 1, right, 1 inch horizontally equals 100 feet. So 0, 50 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, all the way to 718.3878 feet, which corresponds with the total length of our roadway. However, if you notice, 1 inch vertically only equals 10 feet. So that basically is telling us that the y-axis is exaggerated. If we were to draw this profile at its actual elevation, it would look, I have one here, it would look nearly like a flat line. You wouldn't really see much definition. So we have to exaggerate that profile so that it stands out more. We can see and work with the values more. You just can't do much with a flat line. So in this case, we have to understand what our X and Y values mean within this grid. So it's pretty obvious. One block in the X-axis is 50 feet in our model space. In our model space, the block is also 50 feet tall, but in paper space, that actually represents only 5 feet, right? So we have to keep that in mind. We're exaggerating that y-axis. Again, this is tricky to understand, especially if you're new to it. But in order to get that exaggeration, we need to be able to change the y-axis. And I'll cover that here in just a little bit. So what we're going to do, our first step, is we are going to we have to generate this grid. We have to create this grid. And so I'm going to do that for you. I'm going to do the grid. I'm not going to do the numbers. You should be able to do those numbers fairly straightforward. The first thing I want to do, I do have to look at the elevation data and understand what is the highest value, what's the lowest value, and then set my grid accordingly. In this case, I know that, I've already got it drawn here, but I'd have to process the data here and see what's my largest value, y value, what's my lowest y value. And then I like to show at least 5 feet below and 5 feet above the grid. We don't want the profile, we don't want to see the profile going beyond the grid or right up against the grid. So we want to show 5 feet above and 5 feet below. So you do have to look at the data first and understand what you're working with. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw the grid. I'm going to start with the lowest line here at 180. So I'm going to draw a line that's 718.3878 feet long. Just draw this line here at 718.3878 feet long. All right. So we have this line drawn. This is the total length of the road. And I know that these are 50 feet offset. So I'm just going to offset this by 50 feet. And I'm going to do that, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. All right, I'm going to draw my line on this side. And I could use the same method that we used before with the measure command and make a block out of these and insert, or I could just use my array command, which is pretty straightforward. I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to use a path array. I'm going to select this. Oh, that looks like quite a lot there. Space between, I'm going to set that at 50 feet. Should fix it. It does. I'm going to close that array. And then if you notice, I do need to draw one more line along this back side. So we'll connect those. And let's see, in order to work with this, let's go ahead and load that. All right, so we've got our grid drawn. Simple enough, right? And what we want to do, next we would label these. I'm not going to bother labeling these. You guys should know how to do that. But I will borrow these. All right, so now we have this labeled grid, and the next thing we would need to do brings us to step 2. We have to actually create the profile. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my text file. Again, you should receive a text file for each roadway. In the past, I've used Excel and Word to format these, but in this case, I only have an X and a Y value in my column here, and I don't really need to do much formatting in this. So I'm just going to grab the information here, and I'm going to copy that. All right, move that out of the way. Next thing I need to do, so I have that on my clipboard ready to go. The next thing I need to do, I need to create a block. Right. Let's do this block. And this time I don't want, let's see, let's call this, we're going to call this demo profile. That should be good. I'm going to uncheck base point. I do not want to select a base point or objects. I do want to allow exploding, and I do not want to check scale uniformly. And I'm going to say okay, and it's going to give me this warning. Hey, you haven't selected anything. Not a big deal. Just continue along. I've created a block with nothing in it, which is fine. I'm now going to go up and edit that block, demo profile. Okay. And the next thing I need to do is I need to insert that profile into my block. So let's call that, we're going to use a polyline command. All right. We bring this up, and now I already have that on my clipboard. So Control V, and did you catch that? It actually drew the line for me, right? Some good old auto line drawing action. And if I zoom in, some of you might say, well, now wait a minute, that doesn't make sense because it didn't start at the origin. Well, if you recall, we go back to our data here that we grabbed. Our first elevation, our first point was 0x and 189.6367y. So 189.6367, if we take a distance measurement here from 0, 0 up to that endpoint, it is exactly 189.6367. So it is actually in the exact correct location. It's exactly where we want it. All right, next thing we might do is we might go ahead and select this and put this on the layer that we want. Let's see, I think I have a profile lines layer there. We're going to use that. And something that I like to do just to make sure that we understand where we're placing this, this line, if you notice the highest point, the next highest point was, I believe, 190, and under that 185. I'm going to go ahead and insert a point. And insert a point here at 0, 190. If we zoom in, that is 190, whereas that was 189 point something. And then I want to insert another point just so you see where we're at here, 0, 185. Okay, so that has placed a point at 0, 185 feet above sea level and 190 feet above sea level. Okay, and I'm not going to put those on that layer. I'm just going to leave those there. This is just so that you see how this works. Okay, I'm going to save my block now. Okay, and I'm going to close that. Now, the next phase, step number 3, we need to insert the profile into our model space, format it a little bit, and insert it or move it, into the grid we created. Okay, so let's go ahead and insert our demo profile. And I'm just going to insert it right here beside this. Now notice again, it looks like a kind of a flat line, not very much detail to it. So what we're going to do now, we're going to highlight that. Again, notice the insertion point was down here. That insertion point would be 0, 0, whereas the profile started at, what was it, 189.6367, right? So it makes sense that the insertion point is down here. The next thing we're going to do, we highlighted this, and we're going to change the scale factor. Let me zoom out just a little bit so you see this. We're going to change the scale factor to 10. And what this is going to do, when I accept this, it's going to exaggerate that y-axis. And check it out, it sure did. Right? See how it's a lot more, you see a lot more detail with that profile. It also did some funky stuff with the points I inserted here, but that's all right. The next thing I want to do, I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to explode it. Notice those points went back to where they belong. Now, I want to move this profile and I'm going to select a starting point here at the node. So if you don't have node running, go ahead and key in node. And I'm going to pick on that 190 value. And I'm going to move this down to my grid. And now I'm going to select on the intersection of that 190 point there. and that inserts the profile that I generated into my grid. And again, that's exactly 190. And if I did this correctly, again, this is a great way to validate your scale correctly to the correct Y value, is that this 185 I inserted is right here on the 185 value. So that's perfect. So now I have my profile inserted in the grid. I can go ahead and get rid of these. Don't need these anymore. So now we have a completed profile for this roadway. This concludes our session of the Joy of CAD. Happy drafting.